Hello everyone, welcome back to another more properly shot video on the channel. This one's gonna be a little bit different because I don't quite know how I feel about this, and I legitimately just ended watching this. I just shut it off after the last episode, maybe 2-3 minutes ago. And we're going to be talking about Wonder Man today, the newest entry into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I don't know how to feel about it. It's weird. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's actually kind of solid. You know, the writing's pretty solid, acting's solid. It's just, as someone who's such a huge, Marvel fan and a comic book fan and a superhero fan, this show is not any of that, even though it's in the MCU, which I know doesn't make any sense. So for those of you who don't know, Wonder Man, the show, is basically about this struggling actor who is really trying to, get his career going, and he really wants to get part in this remake of this old movie called Wonder Man. That's the basic of the plot. And Wonder Man is a character from Marvel Comics. He is an actor, typically. He's kind of like, if you're a Mortal Kombat fan, he's with Johnny Cage. He's kind of like that. He's very much different than how he's portrayed in the show. And that's kind of the issue I'm having, because the way the show was marketed was, it's going to be this, exploration and discussion on basically modern Hollywood. Excuse me. And the things that they're doing, like specifically, superhero fatigue, which if you've been on any kind of social media or anything for the last 2-3 years in regards to Marvel, DC, or whatever, you've heard that a lot. And they also we're going to tackle that. And they're also talking about race swapping, because the main character of the show, Simon Williams, is black, but in the comics he is a white man. Neither of those things are even remotely discussed in this, so that was a complete and total lie. And the show is it doesn't feel like it's for comic book fans at all, or superhero fans, or even really MCU fans. This show to me feels like it's meant, it almost feels like, I don't want to say propaganda, because there's negative connotations to that, but it feels like Hollywood's trying to say, hey, look at how, Hollywood is, and it's all this, and you should want to do this, and stuff. But it shows you the processes of what Simon does as an actor, how he, learns these characters that he goes to play, and this, that, and the other. And it just didn't hit for me. This isn't for me. This is something that Marvel can't really afford to do right now, because this is a nothing burger. It has no ties into anything. It feels completely removed from the MCU as a whole. The only things that are really have any connective tissue are, there's a scene where they go to the director's home, and they go into his little studio place to talk about the movie and characters. There's a couple little pictures on the wall. You see Cap's Winter Soldier stealth suit. You see a shot of Cap's shield. You see basically the torso shot of Thor's Love and Thunder costume, and I think a headshot of the Black Panther suit. And that's really it. There's no references really to Marvel or the MCU or anything. And it almost makes me wonder, was that on purpose? Because a lot of people have been, kind of upset about the whole having to do homework on these things. But the problem is taking that out of it, because again, you don't have to watch anything Marvel to know what's going on here, and it doesn't tie into anything. So it's kind of, you made something that no one really needs to watch, so it probably won't. Like if I wasn't, doing this channel and looking for content and wanted to talk about these things, it wasn't the crazy super uber nerd that I am, I wouldn't have watched this. And I didn't really like it. Again, I'm not saying that the show is bad by any means. It's just, it's not for me, and it didn't, hit with me on a lot of levels. I don't really care if I'm... Here's my problem. And I know I'm kind of scatterbrained on this. Like I said, I just finished watching this. I didn't want to plan this one out or make any notes. I kind of wanted to just, go into this, fresh thoughts. When I'm going to watch a Marvel project, movie, show, animated series, whatever, when I see that Marvel logo, I expect certain things, superheroes and bad guys and villains and powers and stuff. And there's a little bit of like powers and whatnot, but it doesn't feel like Marvel. This easily could have been, if you take out I guess I should have, I kind of lied a little bit. There's more than just, those images of Marvel characters. We do have Trevor Slattery come back, and there's a lot of references to the Mandarin. I kind of forgot about that, but it's such a nothing thing, and it annoyed me so bad that I kind of forgot about it. But it's a guy trying to act in a movie. That's basically what it is. And he's having a hard time because, he has these superpowers. And he doesn't know how to control them. Even though he's like 30-ish. And he's lived with these, I think they established since he's like 13. So you figure for over half his life, he hasn't learned how to control these powers. That kind of makes him a problem. I don't like that. I think that's really stupid. And there's only like little bits here and there. Some of the stuff they do with it is cool. There's some cool CGI and whatnot with it. But, again, it's not really much of anything. And I expected more. I expected more superhero stuff. There's no... The villain of the movie... They have damage control basically losing funding. And so they're trying to capture Simon because they have, information on the background. Like, they're connecting the dots from all these explosions and whatnot that he's been, because he can't control his powers, so his powers explode. That's kind of a problem. So it's like almost like, yeah, he kind of should be locked up, because he's a threat to himself and everybody else. And so they're, I guess, the villain of the film, because they're trying to, fill up the prison, which I think is meant to be like, I don't know, like the Raft, or there's another one in Marvel. I can't remember the name of it at the time. The Raft's the only one I remember. So I'm going to just go with the Raft. But it's like they're saying, oh, it's half full, so they're going to cut our budget, so we got to fill it. So it's like, okay, kind of a flimsy reasoning for the antagonist of the story, but all right. And there's no hero's journey or anything. Simon's pretty much the same person he is throughout, but he doesn't really... he learns to befriend Trevor, and he goes to save Trevor at the end of it. Breaks him out of the prison and randomly learns how to fly, which that was never shown, so he just learned how to fly off camera. Kind of would have been nice to see that happen, it could have been done a lot better, because he breaks in, it seems like he has control of his powers in this kind of like epilogue bit. He like breaks into the jail. Well, he sneaks into the jail, then he breaks Trevor out, and they fly out. So it's kind of like, when did all of this happen? It feels like that kind of should have been a moment where maybe they were in danger, and he had to, try and save himself and Trevor, and he kind of just, unlocks this thing that he doesn't really know how to do or control, but it's just enough to get them out of there. Maybe they crash lands, or kind of like in the first Iron Man movie, where he flies out of the cave in the Mark 1 and then crashes, something like that. But there's no, like, hero versus villain fight. This just feels like it could have been any streaming show, any streaming service, or any TV show or whatever. And I know I'm sounding very negative on it. It's because, like I said, I expect, superhero stuff in my superhero or Marvel production. but it's not terrible, but it's also, I'll never watch this again. I have no desire to. I didn't really like Simon as a character. I didn't care about him. Ben Kingsley as Trevor Slattery stole the show. He was phenomenal. He actually had a couple lines that made me chuckle. But he also kind of made me mad, his character at least, because I'm a pretty big Iron Man fan. I love Iron Man. He's one of my favorite Marvel characters. I got an Iron Man here, even though this figure kind of sucks. I've got Iron Man figure here. I'm staring at an Iron Man figure right in front of me. I've got Iron Man stuff all over the place. He's one of my favorite Marvel characters. And my favorite Iron Man villain is the Mandarin. And I've been waiting since 2008, the first Iron Man movie, to see the Mandarin done properly on screen. And he's shown up in Iron Man 3, and he was a fake. And then there was Aldrich Killian, who's another character technically from the comics that they turned him into. And then he showed up again in, well, he had this one little, back when they used to do these little like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. style shorts on the home video releases, on the Blu-rays and DVDs and stuff. And then I think he popped up again in something else. I can't remember. And now he pops up in this. And I keep waiting for him because he keeps popping up, and I keep waiting for them to be like, oh, he's actually been the Mandarin, the real Mandarin the whole time. He's playing everybody. That would be so cool. And that's such a Mandarin thing to do. But every time it just ends up being another joke, and I'm kind of sick of it. And I get why Marvel doesn't want it to, because, current day, we having a Chinese-looking villain, and who's a Chinese guy talking like a Chinese guy, probably gonna offend a lot of people. It's like, shut up. Who cares? It's a diverse villain. There you go. You take that and run with it. But that annoyed me. And I don't know. This one wasn't it for me. Again, it's not bad. It's just this one has me more frustrated than anything else. I don't hate it like I did Captain America Brave New World. I kind of feel, although if I'm going to be honest, I kind of enjoyed Thunderbolts more than this, because at least I like John Walker, because John Walker did nothing wrong. And I did finally get around to watching Fantastic Four first up, which I'm still going to make a video on that. But this is just, and I feel like for all of those, I had kind of strong feelings on whether it was bad or it was okay. This, I'm just kind of like, whatever. That's like 5 hours of my life I'll never get back. Wasn't really worth it. Doesn't connect into Doomsday or anything. So, I don't know. This really isn't something I would recommend. I try not to when I watch these. I try not to tell you guys specifically, oh, go watch this. You have to watch this. Or, don't watch this. It's terrible. I try to give you my thoughts, my opinions, because I like talking about this stuff. So it's kind of, an avenue for me to do that. And to maybe give you guys, the opinion of someone who's just like a regular, ordinary, comic book nerd. Maybe that'll, influence you. But this one, I almost kind of feel like telling you guys don't watch it. It's just one of those, it's just there. I want to at some point, because we have Doomsday coming out at the end of the year, I want to do a rewatch of the entire MCU, and it's like, I'm not watching this again. I watched it once, skipping it. There's no point in going back to it. It doesn't really... They should have done this when Marvel was in a much healthier spot, like back in Phase 2 or something. When, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was a show, which I actually enjoyed for the first couple of seasons. Or like Guardians of the Galaxy, when they were taking risks. This would have worked back then. But right now, it's just... And they changed his origin story of how he got his powers. It seems like, from what they're saying in the shows, almost like he was just born with them, or he had them. Kind of like he's a mutant who can harness and control ionic energy, which that part, yes, that's what his powers are. But in the comics, traditionally, and even in my opinion, the greatest adaptation of the Marvel's ever done, in Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the animated series, which, if you have Disney Plus, instead of watching, if you want to see proper Wonder Man, don't watch. I would recommend maybe skip the Wonder Man TV show. Watch Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, because they introduce Wonder Man properly. It's really cool. Because Baron Zemo, who was in, he's a villain, bad guy in Captain America: Civil War. He also showed up again in Falcon Winter Soldier, which I hope you guys didn't watch, because that was trash too. But he, he's this kind of like mad scientist guy in the comics, and he's very smart, very intelligent. and he ends up giving Simon his powers. And Simon starts off as a villain. He works with Baron Zemo and the Masters of Evil. And then throughout, interactions with the Avengers, and he has kind of a love triangle thing with Scarlet Witch and Vision, he ends up becoming an Avenger. But there's none of that. He just feels kind of like this guy. Here's this guy. He's got powers. They don't even really tell us what his powers are until like the last couple minutes when you're like, oh, everything that he's around is like is this massive effect of ions and stuff, and he can control and harness ions apparently. And it's like, oh, cool. You tell me that within the last 2 minutes of the show. I don't know. This one just wasn't it. But yeah, that's kind of my very much, scatterbrained thoughts on this. I don't really have much to say. That's why I didn't do a more, planned concept or video. I don't think it's worth watching. I really don't. It's not the worst thing, but again, it's just kind of there. This feels very much, the best way I can describe this is it feels like filler. It feels like if you watch anime, it feels like a filler to get from one arc to the next arc. This just feels like, because we haven't had anything from Marvel, I think, since, was Fantastic Four the last one? No, there had to have been something else. I feel like there might have been another show or something that I'm missing. Maybe it was Fantastic Four, but we have but I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments if you guys remember when I forget. But if it was Fantastic Four, that was like June, and from like now we're basically just we had this just to kind of like get us through, which they should have done it a couple months earlier, I think, instead of waiting this long. Because the next thing we have is Daredevil season 2, and I believe it airs March 24th, which, yes, I will be reviewing that because I cannot wait to see how much they ruin one of my favorite characters more. But that's besides the point. And then we have Daredevil, and then after that, I believe we go into Spider-Man, and then Doomsday. So there might be some other shows or whatnot I can't remember right now, but yeah, that's basically the main stuff that I'm remembering, because that's mainly what I'm the most invested in, I guess. But yeah, that's basically going to be it for me. I really appreciate you guys listening to this massive ramble session. I always appreciate it when you guys watch these videos. Please, if you are so inclined, consider commenting, and subscribing to the channel. I really enjoy doing this and talking about these things with you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy watching it. I appreciate it anytime you guys do. And that's going to be it for me. I will catch you guys in the next one. Hope you guys have a great day. Peace and love, everybody. I'll catch you guys later.